Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani and Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani and Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm film scholar and Captain Cardboard, Noelle LaCroix.
And I'm weak and kidney story expert, Lani and Rich, and we're here today to talk about No Place Like Home, the 5th episode of Season 5.
No Place Like Home aired on October 24th, 2000, and was written by Douglas Petrie and directed by David Solomon.
Still Pretty is a fully spoiled Buffy podcast, so if you are spoiler sensitive and have not seen the whole show, get on that, then come on back. Your conjuring powders are grotesquely overpriced, so let's go on patrol. In No Place Like Home, a group of monks rushes from danger, performs a spell, and then danger finds them. In a different time and place, Buffy dusts a vampire in a factory parking lot, and when a security guard comes over to tell her she's got to clear out, he hands her a glowy ball, presuming it's hers. To get Dawn out of the house so Joyce can rest, Buffy brings Dawn to the opening of the magic box, where she shows her new glowy toy to the group.
Appears to be paranormal in origin.
How can you tell?
Well, it's so shiny.
Buffy complains to Willow about Dawn, wishing she were an only child. She brings Dawn back home, where they find Joyce laid out on the couch with a debilitating headache. Buffy heads out to the hospital to get medication for Joyce, where she bumps into Ben the intern, who is dealing with a screaming man being brought in on a gurney. It's the security guard from the factory, who was fine the night before. He grabs Buffy and tells her that
they can't be the family. They get to your family.
Buffy heads to the magic box and reports what the security guard said, sure that whatever's happening to Joyce is mystical in nature. In the abandoned factory, one of the monks marks a map just as a woman he calls the Beast busts through the wall.
There you are. I've been looking all over for you.
The Beast, a beautiful woman we will come to know as Glory, tortures the monk, asking him where she can find the key, whatever that is. He refuses to tell her, and she starts to rant, getting more and more agitated until she finally sticks her hands into the head of a man she had chained to the wall. Her hands glow as she extracts his mental energy. She calms right down.
That is so much better.
At the magic box, Anya suggests a spell that Buffy can do to see the magical imprint of whatever is trying to hurt Joyce. Buffy goes home and performs the spell, falling into a trance that allows her to see. She goes out of her room and finds Joyce, but there's nothing there. But then she looks at a picture of her, Joyce, and Dawn, in which Dawn's image flickers in and out. She goes to Dawn's room and sees that Dawn's things also fade in and out of existence. When Dawn walks in, she confronts her.
You stay away from my mother.
Giles calls Buffy and tells her that they figured out what the orb is. It's a protective device that wards off primordial evil. Buffy goes back to the factory to find out more. At the factory, she finds the room Glory destroyed and the monk tied to a chair. She and Glory fight.
Just noticed something. You have superpowers. That is so cool. Can you fly?
Realizing she can't beat Glory, Buffy grabs the monk and jumps out the window with him, leaving Glory to throw a fit that brings the factory crashing down around her. Out in the parking lot, the monk tells Buffy she must protect the key, mystical energy that can open a door that will kill everyone. They gave it form, made it into Dawn, and sent it to Buffy, creating memories of a sister so Buffy would protect it.
What is she?
Human and helpless.
The monk says that Dawn doesn't know what she is, that she is innocent, and then he dies. Buffy goes home and apologizes to Dawn and comforts her as they sit together, worried about Joyce. All right, Noelle. So one of the things I want to kind of start on today as we get into this discussion of No Place Like Home is kind of talking about Buffy season 5 in general, because we have some sort of complicated issues going on here with ableism. We're gonna have a rough ride through Buffy season 5 with regard to representation of people with mental illness, of psychiatric care, and the ways in which Glory's victims are otherized and then sort of turned magical, something that we have traditionally loved to do in our stories for like a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Typically, when talking about something I have limited knowledge of, such as ableism, I try to find articles written on the topic by people with more knowledge. I didn't find any articles specifically speaking to what's happening in season 5, so I'm going to trudge through this as best I can with an open call for insight, article links, anything from people who know more about this. And I want to thank the patrons in the Chipperish Discord chat who shared some of their thoughts with me about it to kind of give me a little bit more perspective, which I really, really appreciated. So we first saw a victim of Glory's mentally destabilizing powers in Real Me when a man portrayed to be mentally ill approached Dawn, called her Little Miss Muffet, and told her she didn't belong here. This is our first instance of a bestowed magical ability to quote unquote see in the mentally ill of season 5. The bestowing of the quote unquote magical on the quote unquote other is something that we see a lot in our stories. Do a search on the magical Negro trope and you will see what I am talking about. Also, let me say for clarity, just because a stereotype may have some positive associations like the ability to see what no one else can, it doesn't make the stereotype any less harmful. It still puts the quote unquote magical other into a space separate from the rest of us. And so these people, while seeing, are still presented as frightening. They are capital O others, and they are the not us. And we culturally associate those experiencing mental illness with fear. We separate and we stigmatize. And the fact is, most of us have had mental illness at one point or another. The World Health Organization estimates 1 in 4 people experiences mental illness at one point or another in their lives. But that's based on those who seek help. Based on my experience talking with my friends and family, I'd estimate that number as much, much higher. Depression, anxiety, obsessive thoughts. These are the common cold of mental well-being, only in terms of how common they are. But culturally, we dismiss, mock, and otherize people who are living with these and other mental ailments, thus discouraging people from getting the help that they need, thus kind of keeping them in isolation and keeping that cycle going. Now, within the text of Buffy itself, the magical effects of the ability to see on Glory's victims comes from Glory's magical effect herself. She is stealing mental energy from her victims, leaving them destabilized in order to hold herself together so she can pull off her evil plans. And to this, you know, as far as the story and the narrative goes, like, I get it. It's magic begetting magic. It's evil stealing mental energy and destabilizing his victims. Glory is evil. That she does this to people isn't really a problem for me. It's what we do to them once she's done that is, for me, the most disturbing. We present these characters as frightening and crazy. Pardon the use of the word, but that is how it's referred to within the text, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that that's how the text is seeing them. Using the momentum of existing cultural stereotypes as a shortcut to justify viewing the mentally ill as having diminished human value. Despite being clearly agitated, Glory's victims don't seem to pose any danger to themselves or to others, but they are strapped into beds, ignored, rejected, drugged, restrained, separated. We'll get to that later in the season, but as we move through the season and the series, it's important to recognize how inhumane our treatment of the mentally ill really is. Instead of caring humanely for people stricken by Glory's evil, we see them dismissed and set aside. They are objects of fear, social rejection, and isolation, which again are things that only serve to exacerbate mental illness, not heal it. And in this episode, we have Willow, one of our most beloved characters, using an ableist slur to describe Dawn. The way that Allison Hannigan delivers the line is cute. The delivery is adorable, which is a textual support of the idea that this kind of demeaning comment is cute and not damaging. And this is where I come in and I say that I personally, I think Noelle has a different opinion, and I'm going to give her some room to share that in a minute. I don't blame the writers or Allison Hannigan. This is a societal problem. Our stories are reflecting us back at ourselves, and when we fix us, we fix our stories. So I want to say again, for the record, what I've said a million times, I don't blame the actors or the writers for this stuff. I blame us as a society. When we demand better, we get better. So at the time of this recording, many of us are experiencing social isolation as we try to flatten the curve of a virus rampaging through our world. Many of us who haven't had issues with mental illness likely will experience depression, anxiety, obsessive thoughts. Any number of things could start working their way in to how we're feeling emotionally and mentally during these times. And those of us who have experienced these illnesses may find them returning or worsening. And when we stigmatize and isolate those of us with mental illness, we make the problem worse. People who might have gotten help otherwise will not reach out. People who might be experiencing symptoms of mental illness may deny that they have it, try to push through without allowing themselves the time, space, and help they need to get through it. So when there are stories like this that further stigmatize and otherize mental illness, it's something we need to recognize and reject. And again, I will say, it's not to say that you cannot enjoy stories that engage in this. Let's remember, it's not because these stories are written by people who have this deliberate and evil intent to harm. These stories are reflecting us back at ourselves. When we change, they will change. And this was also, the early aughts. Now, I think people wouldn't do this. They have more awareness because we have more awareness as a society. So I think that we're seeing that change. But this is also 20 years ago. Not saying that it's okay, saying that I am hesitant to brand everybody who wrote this and was involved with this as full on evil. I think that there's a space where we can allow for the change that we need as a society. I would, however, brand our society as fucking evil in a lot of ways. But the bottom line is, if you are suffering from mental illness, stress, anxiety, depression, or substance abuse issues, you can call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration's helpline, 1-800-662-HELP, 4357. Again, 1-800-662-4357. We're going to see many instances of this sort of thing in this season of Buffy, and it may be a rough ride for some. Self-care can mean distancing yourself from material that's upsetting, and that's okay. But we see you, we hear you, we send our love and support, and we'll be here if ever you want to come back. So I'm going to pass this over to Noelle.
Yeah, first off, I absolutely co-sign the form of self-care that is just walking away from shit that triggers you, for whatever reason. And you don't need to feel ashamed of that. I think I think in addition to there being a lot of stigma around, experiencing mental illness or physical illness or really any of the nuanced, complicated bits and pieces of being a human in a human body with a human mind. There's so much stigma attached to so much of that. And, this is your one life, unless you believe in reincarnation, and then, we'll have that conversation another time. But this is your one incarnation in this body with this mind. Whatever you need to do to make your life, as good as it can be and worth living, as long as you're not mean and you're not hurting anybody else. Do it. So if not engaging is the thing to do, do that. And that's rad. My quick add-on to the culture reflects us back to us is just that it also helps to create us. Culture, it's circular, right? It reflects us back to us, but it also shapes who we are, which is part of why it sucks so much. And it's such a bummer when a performer whose work has affected me deeply says something transphobic. It's why people get into Twitter standoffs about who the real fans of a property are.
Right.
But whether we know it or not, we look to media to tell us how to behave, what is and what is not okay, who and how to love and who and how to ridicule, which is why my knee-jerk reaction when you say I don't blame the writers or I don't blame the performers is always to say I do, which is not entirely fair because they're human. I mean, this is blame. I don't believe in pointing fingers and placing blame necessarily, but I do believe in looking to responsibility, like where's the responsibility? But of course, writers are human, performers are human, and humans do a lot of less than great things, interpersonally, creatively, whatever. So,
right.
So I think that you can say something like, well, I blame the writers for this without saying like, the writers are horrible, evil people, because I don't believe in evil people personally. I don't believe that anyone. I don't believe in evil people. Like that to me is a level of like metaphysical knowledge that I, in my human body and brain, just like cannot possess.
Yeah.
But humans, I mean, human people do a lot of really not cool things. Sometimes by accident and sometimes on purpose and sometimes because it was okay at the time and sometimes because they just didn't care or whatever. There are lots of reasons for it. So, bottom line for me is we are all human here, unless there are some goblins or fey creatures or dragons tuning in which case, welcome to Still Pretty. That's all.
I get it though. And I honestly think that maybe we're coming down to a semantic argument, because I think that for me, it's like what's done is done. What's done is done. Nothing's going to go back and take this out of Buffy. And that I don't believe at all that there was any ill intent in any of the writers who wrote this. And now we have a greater understanding of these things. So from here, if somebody wrote this now, I would be much more inclined to hold them responsible than what they did back then. I think that it is our responsibility as readers to defang these things and to take that power back. Because yes, our media tells us how to behave and how to love and how to ridicule and all of that kind of stuff. But a dash of critical thinking takes that power back. And I feel like power needs to be in the hands of the reader and not necessarily in the hands of the media, that we give them too much power. Which also makes for a situation where somebody with the best of intentions can do something awful. And I take this, I am very personal about this. I've read some of my books that I wrote many years ago and have found things in there where I was like, do better, Lani, so like, I get it. I feel this very deeply from knowing that in no way ever, ever, ever did I mean to do that, but I did it. Like it was in there, So I guess like my expectation is, or my ideal of this is that we as readers, and again, like for anybody who doesn't know, I use reader for anybody who engages critically with anything, whether it be a video game or a movie or a TV show or a book or whatever. It's always reader, because reading requires an active participation, and you can have active participation in movies and TV and all that kind of stuff, as the gazillion podcasts such as this one will attest, right? But that it is the responsibility of the reader to take that power back and to say, you will not tell me how to think, you will not tell me what to believe. And while this is in this story, I can reject it. I have that power. And we've been taking that power back as critical thinkers in the last, 10 years or so, which I think is a really, really good thing. And it also takes... it puts awareness out in the culture for our writers and for our creators, which is good. And I think we're seeing things now. We're seeing people have a greater awareness of what they're doing now in their stories than they did 20 years ago. I think it's all a good thing. But somebody who did something 20 years ago, I'm not interested in passing blame or judgment or any of it. I'm interested in, as a reader, taking that poison out with my critical thinking so that I can enjoy the rest of it, because, oh my God, Noelle, I love season 5.
Season 5 is
love
really, really
season
good.
5 so much. So I just want everybody to know we've had this whole long conversation. As I love on season 5, I recognize the ableism. I see you, and we're gonna call that out, while at the same time giving us a place to love the stuff that's good, right?
Well, and also, like, you can love the stuff that's bad too. Like, I have a really complicated relationship with mental illness, just from my own history and people in my life.
Yeah.
And I fucking love the whole thing with Glory and her cognitive fuckery.
Right.
Like, I love it. So
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
like, but also, like, just that's my point is you can love, like, something can be, like, something can be fucked up and you can still love it, you know? Like, you can be critical of something. You can be, like...
You can choose not to internalize. See, this is the thing. I can choose to look at this stuff and see all of it and not internalize that as a, first of all, as something that would be my response to the mentally ill, or as somebody who's dealt with depression and anxiety. I've had these things. I've dealt with these things. I've had moments where my view of the entire world was not aligned with reality. Like, I've had that experience a bit in the last 3 years or so, and I can also, like, not, as somebody whose mental illness is not quite as much of a challenge as for some other people it might be, like, everything's on a spectrum, I can also not allow this to make me judge or be afraid. I love Glory's magical effect. I think that that's good. I don't have a problem with what she does to people. What bothers me is that then these people, these victims of hers, are being used to inspire fear of mental illness, fear of people with mental illness. And then it breaks my heart at the end of the season when you see where all of these people have gone. Yeah. Strapped to beds, drugged, left in a room together in the dark. No, like, all of that, the way in which these people are treated, I find more horrifying than the people themselves. So,
and something about the horror of it for me is really comforting, because it is a visual metaphor for a very real experience. I mean, or not even a metaphor in some cases. I mean, depending on where in the world you're looking and where in history. But, oh God, I love that kind of horror as a what? But you like that. Like, you actually can appreciate horror. I don't. I do.
So personally, for me, I find that way too upsetting.
Like, there is something very appealing to me about that. Not conceptually obvious, but as a story. Like, there is something really, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, that is an interesting thing about fiction, though, isn't it? That, like, in the world, you look at something like that and go, oh, fuck, that's that's horrifying. And in fiction, I mean, I'm sure it's not just me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe, it's just me on this island. But, like, you can look at something like that and go, yeah, like, there's something very satisfying.
Maybe it helps you process a little bit of that reality, of that very stark, horrible reality. But it is really interesting, though. And I think that the more power we take back, again, critical thinking, honestly, for me, is like, that's the key. Critical thinking, if everybody can just think critically, so much would be so much better, and including the power of the media and our stories to tell us not how things are in that story fictional world, which I think that that you are responsible for, but like how things should be in the world itself, that when we allow ourselves to think critically, we can really take that power back, so that we can enjoy these things the way that they are represented in this season of Buffy. But I just wanted to have that conversation so that we got that addressed. so that people who very reasonably find this incredibly difficult can maybe work with it, because obviously if they're listening to us, this may be very difficult, but they also love Buffy. So if there's a way that we can have this discussion, kind of take that power back a little bit and create a space where people who are hurt by that representation can appreciate the rest of the season, let's see if we can do that.
I mean, no pressure, right?
No pressure. Well, let's give it a shot, right? I believe very strongly in the power of critical thinking. I believe very strongly in that power. And I think that is the ultimate expression of criticism, cultural criticism in general. I'm not interested in being the superior, wagging my finger at people and telling them how they done bad. I am interested in looking at these things critically and with an interest toward understanding them on a higher level, and taking that power back for people so that more people can appreciate and engage with it and enjoy it, because there is so much great stuff. Okay, so No Place Like Home. It's been a half hour of this, and I'm glad that we had this discussion. But I really want to talk about this episode because I find this episode just absolutely, God, it's so interesting. I love the way that we've had this revelation of who Dawn is. But, as always, Noelle, as always, the first thing that I want to do in any episode of Still Pretty is find out what you thought. How do you feel about No Place Like Home?
I feel very much, with the appearance of Glory, I feel very much like, okay, finally. Like, here we go. Like, I know, really, but because I love, there's a lot to love in episodes 1 through 4 of season 5, but like season 5 is season Glory for me, and I'm so excited to see her, and she's so strong, right? Crashing through the wall. Like at first, I'm like, okay, here we go, here we go, and And there's a lot going on in season 5.
Yeah.
Like, have I said that every episode previously? But seriously, like, not just the revelation about Dawn, but this parallel between, being physically incapacitated in Joyce's case and being mentally incapacitated, and what have we done to the minds of, these people in order to create Dawn, the key, and give her a physical form. So there's all of this dance of like the physical and the mental, and Buffy's role is changing yet again as she steps into a different kind of caregiving mode, while also having this friction with a younger sister. And there's so much going on. There's so much going on. It's like it's a lot. And before we dive into like every single little character bit of deliciousness that is here, I just want to talk about the title real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
Because No Place Like Home for me immediately sparks Wizard of Oz, right?
Oh, sure.
The quote unquote magic words that return Dorothy to Kansas, except the movie, and I'm going to talk about the movie because visual media to visual media is just how I roll. Right. The movie wants us to believe that the trip to Oz took place entirely in Dorothy's mind while she was unconscious, because the relationship between magic and head trauma is everywhere, folks. Like it's just everywhere. And I am fascinated by that. The idea that you would have this really powerful experience, in Dorothy's case, this journey to Oz. In Buffy's case, her entire remembered experience of growing up with Dawn as a younger sister, and have it be false or not of quote unquote real life, as though that's a thing that we can measure, or not of waking life. I mean, it's in the same vein as "And It Was All a Dream."
Right.
I am fascinated by the weight of the revelation about who Dawn is on Buffy. The new weight, because Buffy wasn't carrying enough already, right, you guys? But like to have, when she's called to be the Slayer, there's this immediate focus on her body and her strength and her speed and her training. You know, she does, as Glory says, she has superpowers.
Yeah.
She really does. Now she has this, something else has been done to her without her permission, but this time it's mental.
Yeah.
And anytime there's stories about cognitive shifts are extremely compelling, to me at least, because of what they tell us about our feelings with regard to agency, powerlessness. That moment when Buffy comes back to the house at the end of the episode and she says she's talking to Dawn and trying to apologize. And she says, "You always do such and so ever since." And then she stops herself because she has this new piece of knowledge. And in the same moment that she is trying to make amends with Dawn and trying to comfort Dawn, she's also grappling with her own, this huge revelation of what has been done to her mind.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. The kinds of magical experiences that we can communicate through any sort of twist of cognitive functioning, including trance state, which also figures in this episode. And I just adore. How do you feel about the trance? I know you hate dream sequences. I know you hate flashbacks sometimes.
Oh, yeah, no, but the trance is a real experience in real time, though. So it's not something used deliberately to, or predominantly, you know, which is the case in general dream sequences. I think Buffy gets a little bit of a pass because the dreams are such a part of her power, you know, and they tend to be prophetic rather than, you know, symbolic, with the exception of Restless, which whatever. I still can't with Restless. But the trance state I thought was actually pretty cool, because here we have this ability to see reality in a shifted space, right? You know, and when you're talking about like a mental illness, which I don't think they deliberately want to talk about, but they kind of brought into the conversation. So fuck all y'all, we're going to talk about it. When you talk about that, like, you know, like I was just talking about that, like that like altered reality experience that I've had a lot in the past few years. And now I'm at the point where I can recognize when it's altered reality, but when I'm in that space, I experience that as reality. So the fact is, reality itself is somewhat malleable. But when you see Buffy going into this space, which is really interesting in the way that it's visually represented, we can see when she snaps into and snaps out of it by this a change in the way the video is treated, you know? And so we've got that moment where she is actually seeing reality, and you see Dawn flickering in and out when she's in Dawn's room. It's a storage room half the time, and then it's a young girl's bedroom the other half of the time. Dawn flickers in and out when she comes into the room itself. I actually quite like that as kind of a treatise on what actually is reality. Like, if you have these memories and these experiences, if you have them, whether or not they actually happened, does that become immaterial? Because Dawn is there now. Dawn is real now. That her experience of her history has been altered, adding this person in, but right now that is still her experience of that history. So, and it is a shared experience. Everybody else has it too. So does that then become actual reality? Where does actual reality stop? What is it? What is it that defines actual reality?
Right.
You know, I mean, those are questions that are way too big for me on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, and like, nobody knows. Nobody really knows. And that's great, which is what I love.
Yes.
But having to, in addition to everything else that's going on for Buffy, I mean, it just, even in this episode alone, trying to juggle, you know, being positive for Giles about the opening of the magic box with concern about her mother, with this, you know, here's this mysterious orb, which, as we know in Sunnydale, could be great or it could be terrifying. Like, it could be anything. There's, you know, plus just the mundane, annoying little sister stuff. It's a lot for Buffy to be dealing with just within this little narrative. And then she gets in this colossal fight with
Yep.
something. She has no idea what Glory is at this point, and neither do we.
Yeah.
You know, if we're watching this the first time, which I so envy people who got to watch this without knowing. Like, what? Can you imagine? You're like,
no, the first time I was so into, I mean, season 5, the experience of watching season 5 the first time for me, was, I loved it. Season 5 was my favorite season because it was the one that surprised me the most, you know? There's so much stuff they're doing in this season that is so bold and so interesting. And yeah, I mean, there are things like there are a lot of people who don't like Glory. And like, I get it. I love Glory.
I don't.
Glory.
Sorry, folks. I don't get it. No, well, go ahead. I'm sorry. If you thought my love of Maggie Walsh was disproportionate, unfounded, and obnoxious, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I do. I love Glory. Like, I love her. I love her snark. I love her dialogue. I love like all of this stuff they've got going on with her. There's just something about that character and about Claire Kramer's, presentation of that character. I just love all of it. Like, I am completely here for it. This was a character that was made to delight me. And I hear the arguments for people who don't like Glory. Like, I'm willing to like understand where that's coming from. At the same time, I am going to just love up on Glory as we're doing this season because there's so much here that I find so delightful.
In this episode, she's weirdly sympathetic, which is something I absolutely adore. Like,
she is.
First thing,
she's vulnerable. Yeah.
She is so interesting and so clearly not someone you want to hang around. Like, I love the abuse dynamic. That sounds really horrible to say, but I love how recognizable this is. She's a mean mommy, right? She's, this is hurting me more than it's going to hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's,
her whole speech.
There's
You're
something
so
seriously wrong
selfish.
with me. Yeah,
Don't you know how this affects me? I mean, it's funny. It's interesting. She's also like, she has a clear goal. I mean, as we're going to discover, like, we don't really know what it is now aside from finding the key, but like, we know that she has been locked out of her world, her existence. And so she wants that back. And it's so much more interesting instead of just evil for evil's sake, or even the search for power for power's sake. And as we learned with the mayor in season 3, a vulnerable villain is really, really fun because you can have that sense of sympathy. And I think for the mayor, that came in with his love of faith. And with Glory, I think it comes in with the fact that she has all of this power strapped into this human body that cannot handle it.
Yeah. And she doesn't enjoy it. I love her relationship to humans and a human body. That to me feels strangely relatable. This like her being disgusted with being in a mortal meat suit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel this like in
you can understand that, right?
I feel this on a cellular level. This like having a body, man. Like, it is, sometimes it's fun, but a lot of times it's like miserable and not. And you're like, this is not what I signed up for.
This is not what I signed up for as a super powerful being from another dimension.
I am a super powerful being from another dimension, and the fact that I am stuck in a human body is just a huge bummer.
It's just an
ruining
insult.
my whole day.
It is such an insult. Yeah.
It's so good.
So I love all of that. And then the fact that she starts to spin out, and that's when she has to steal mental energy from humans to keep herself grounded. Like the fact that she's doing it. I mean, she's clearly evil. She's doing this to other people. She's hurting other people. She's not doing it to hurt them. She's doing it because she needs something and she doesn't care about them. right?
Right.
But she needs something from them. And then the fact that that transforms them into people who can see, which is going to become very relevant at the end of the season, that these are actually all of these people that she stole from are what actually leads to her downfall, you know? I like that. Like, I like the way that that is used, you know, structurally, narratively throughout the season, and what it does for Glory, in that, like, when you got a villain that's evil just for evil's sake, that's just tying girls to a railroad track because I guess that was cool at some point. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know why that's a fun pastime,
you
why you'd
gotta
rather do
get-
that
yeah,
than
I
go to
mean,
the movies, you know, but
got to make your own fun when you're evil, I guess.
I guess, but like at the same time, like when evil exists simply because of, you know, that there is a means to an end, and I'm going to do this regardless of how it affects anybody else. Like, I find that much more interesting, especially because her ends, you know, what it is that she's working toward, her goals, as we move through. I mean, at this point, we don't know what that is, and that's completely appropriate. That's fine. But as we move through the season, we're going to learn what her goals are, what it is that she wants, what it is that she's working for. And in none of it does she deliberately want to hurt anybody. She just wants what's hers back, and sees humans the way that, like, we might see ants.
Yeah,
You know, like,
she's-
what do they matter?
Well, and she's Shadow Dorothy, right? She just wants to go
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
She just wants to go home.
I love Shadow Dorothy. I think
She
that's
is.
great. I love that connection. Yeah, she
Yeah.
absolutely is, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And this is
So-
Oz. Yeah. So I find that really super fascinating. Now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Dawn, right? Because this is essential. Like, we had Dawn thrown in at the end of Buffy versus Dracula. We've had 3 episodes where we're just like, oh, okay, I guess apparently Dawn is a thing. Whereas viewers, you're experiencing this gaslight situation where you're like, this is not reality, you know? And then to have this moment where first we see Dawn as a potential source of evil, right? And then we have that terrible scene with Joyce where Dawn is all super creepy in a way that she would absolutely not be. That's bullshit. But
Is it? It worked.
yeah.
It worked for me. It worked for me, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
No, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I'll tell you why that doesn't work for me. And it's great that
Okay.
it works for you. Like, that's, you know, but it just, like, I don't like it because it violates some writing things that I personally myself hold a little sacred, which is don't lie to your audience. But Buffy, to have this moment where Buffy throws her against the wall, thinks that she is evil, thinks that she is hurting her mother, right? What are you, right? And then goes and finds this monk, and the monk says, she is human. She is a little girl. She is innocent. And that you must protect her. And that by putting her in your family and making you love her, we know that you will protect her. Like, when this revelation happened that this is what Dawn was, I loved it. I think it is so, because it puts Buffy in this situation where she has all these memories that are not quote unquote real. Although, again, define real.
Who says? Yeah.
Define real, you know? And then she's got this sister that irritates her and drives her crazy, but who she loves. That moment at the end when she goes in to sit with Dawn and just touches her hair and apologizes and says, I had a bad day. And then Dawn's like, join the club. I'm president. You could be janitor. It's all of it so sweet and so touching and so heartbreaking, because she does genuinely love Dawn. And in that moment is realizing that Dawn isn't quote unquote real. I think there's an argument that she's real now.
She's both real and not real.
She's both real and not real.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and there's a grief for the things that she had in her life that were pre-Dawn, but without Dawn, that she's lost, you know? And then all of this Dawn stuff being in there that she has to kind of deal with. Like, I love the complexity of all of this, of how it takes Buffy and kind of pulls her in these different directions at the same time. And I absolutely love the way that they put Dawn in there. And Dawn has been a huge source of controversy. There are people who like Dawn. There are people who hate Dawn. There are people who are really indifferent to Dawn. I love Dawn. I love Dawn as a narrative function. the way that they brought her in. And I love Dawn, the character, for the most part. There are times where she gets irritating and we don't know what to do with her. I think that happens mostly in season 6. But for the most part, like, I really, really love Dawn. What is your response to all of this?
I love Dawn, and I agree with you completely. That scene at the end where Buffy goes to her and is clearly has all of these, like, she has so much information that she has just gained about who this person is.
Yeah.
You know, after having the experience of seeing her disappear from family photos and seeing her in the context of this trance state that is enabling Buffy to see magic and not understanding what that means, to then hear, yes, she is magic, but she is also a human girl and she has no idea who she is. It's so touching. And then they have that moment where they're sitting on the bed together and Buffy is petting Dawn's hair and Dawn just says, "What's wrong with Mom?"
Oh, God.
And Buffy says, "I don't know."
I know.
And I'm like getting choked up because we've had all of this drama and all of this suspense over, you know, thinking, is Dawn evil? Is Dawn what's hurting Joyce? Is, you know, what is going on? To, she's literally just a little girl and she's scared because her mom is sick.
Oh my God. It's so heartbreaking. And the stakes of that. The stakes of this, that, like, right away, you know, now, like, what is at stake, what is at risk is her sister, you know, that's so personal, that cuts so deep. And yet it's a person that she has, you know, and again, like, what is reality? It's a person that she's really only been with for a few weeks, you know?
Yeah.
It's so freaking wild and crazy and creative, and all of this coming in this episode, right? Boom.
There's so much in this episode.
So much. And I love it. But so to that one scene, this is why I think it's bullshit. To that one scene where Buffy is off at the factory fighting with Glory and is about to discover what's going on with Dawn, but we as the audience do not know yet that Dawn is not evil. Joyce comes home and there is Dawn looking like the quote unquote creepy little girl trope, right? You know, with the tea and "I made you tea. Don't worry about her." Like, the way that they had her deliver those lines and the things that they had her say are things that in the context of Dawn is evil and going to hurt Joyce makes sense. In the context of Dawn is just a kid, you know, don't make any sense. Like, it only tracks for one read on that scene, which means that we're deliberately misleading and freaking out our audience with something that would not be reasonable or believable in the actual, you know, correct understanding. You need to write a scene that both gives the creep vibe here and yet, when watched again while knowing everything, also works for that. If you don't do that, then you're lying and misleading your audience. You're lying to and misleading your audience. So that is why I have a problem with that scene.
And I don't see it as being quite as misleading as you do, because to me, it's still, despite the fact that Buffy is not there, it still feels very much in Buffy's POV, oddly. We're still experiencing Dawn because we are coming on this journey to Dawn through Buffy. So we're still with Buffy in that moment, but watching it back when you know that Dawn is just an innocent child in all of this, it reads to me like the kid who is hurt and upset trying too hard. Now, yes, it has that like veneer of creep, like the way that it's like visually, absolutely. But the I made it like I'm going to stuff down my feelings about having gotten into this really very scary fight,
having been thrown against the wall by her Slayer
by
power
someone
sister.
Who has superpowers.
Yeah, that's a real scary thing. Yeah, no, I just I don't think we can be in Buffy's POV if she's not there. And also like it doesn't work for me on both levels, but I'm glad that it works for you. That you can see both of them. I don't see it. I think it's way too hard weighted toward the evil side. The same way that we have like in the earlier scene, do you think I care that you're the Slayer? You know? Like that kind of stuff, which is just things that like I don't think that Dawn, it works a little better, but I don't think Dawn would say that. Under these circumstances, it's weighted to make us believe that Dawn is the source of the evil, rather than letting us, like, if as a writer, if you work into the momentum you've already set up, you don't have to work that hard. There's an editing practice that was done, like the Russians in the early parts of the 20th century were doing incredible work with this new medium of film, right? And I can't remember the name of the Russian. I want to say it starts with a V, but I've taught this in my production class when I was teaching television production. That if you take the same shot, like of a character, like an actor without any expression at all, and then you edit it next to a picture of a flower, people read him as happy. People read him as joyous. And if you edit it next to a picture of a coffin, people read it as sad. But the expression, the shot of the man is exactly the same. It's the exact same thing. So you don't have to work that hard if you have context to work with. So if you work on the momentum of your context, you don't have to work that hard making Dawn super, super creepy. And also little girls, the way that little girls, specifically, sometimes small children, but specifically little girls are used in media, there's a creep factor to it anyway. If you have a little girl who is not acting like a little girl, there's just like this creepy kind of element to it anyway.
Oh, yeah, because anything that is not expected for your gender and or position in society is inherently suspect.
Inherently suspect.
That's great. That's exactly, I mean,
right. So you don't need to work that hard with Dawn to make her seem creepy. All you have to do is give her give her a lack of affect. In that, which I would understand considering she'd just been, basically abused by her sister at this moment,
Yeah, she's trying to be strong. Yeah. I mean, they hit it a little hard with the suspense horror.
They did.
Tropes. But it, like, I don't know. I guess I have more grace for it than you do because I like those suspense horror tropes.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I don't have a lot of patience for it.
Also that scene with Dawn like swooping into the living room while Buffy's on the phone.
Yeah.
And the way it's immediately followed by the scene of Buffy yanking Spike out from behind the tree.
Oh, let's talk about Spike, baby.
Masterful.
Oh, my God.
Masterful.
Spike. Okay, first of all, Spike has no place in this narrative. He is not part of this story. There is nothing going on. I love this moment. He's there. He's just realized that he's in love with her. She pulls him out from behind the tree, right? And he just goes, "Hi, Buffy." Like in this 7th grade, I'm about to pass you a note in study hall way, which is goddamn adorable. And then she's and what'd she say? Like, "Excuse me," and then she punches him in the face.
Don't take this personally.
Punches him in the face. And then is, "What are you doing?" And 5 words or less, and "Out for a walk, bitch." Like the whole thing is 30 seconds of just goddamn delight, even though it has no place in the narrative. I don't care. That's how good it is, because you know how I am about keeping my narrative tight. I don't even care. I love it. And then when she looks down and sees all the cigarette butts at the base of the tree that he's been standing out there outside of her house this whole time, and he's evil and he's wrong and he's soulless, and I still go, oh.
I don't go, oh, but I do love him with no chill. You have stupid hair.
And you've got
your house is between
parts and other
and he
parts
just has nothing. Like,
oh my God.
It's so perfect. It has no place in the narrative, but I feel like it has place in the structure because Oh God, we need that break.
We need that break. We
need that emotional break.
We
really do.
And the delivery James Marsters in it is so sweet. And I mean, this is the thing, like that vulnerability of being in love with Buffy, especially for Spike, because love is his vulnerability of choice. Like love is his vulnerability language, right? When Spike is in love, it alters everything about him. It was like that with Drusilla. It's like that with Buffy. And he loves completely with everything that he is, including the evil that he is. I find that love story, and again, like, you know, the Buffy side of that love story I don't think is truly realized until season 6 and 7, you know, and it's a very complicated path getting there, you know,
and that is fine.
It's
Some
fine.
of us,
but that you can tell a one-sided love story. You can tell a one-sided love story. If love exists, whether it exists on both sides or not, you can tell that. And of course, you know, I have a soft spot. You have a soft spot for creepy girls, right? I have a soft spot for love stories. So seeing this love story evolve for Spike, which is going to hit its like crescendo, like when we get to Fool for Love, man. It's gonna be a long goddamn day of you listening to me just squee over that shit. But I love this moment. I love the intense vulnerability for him. I love how funny it is. I love how clueless Buffy is. She sees all those cigarettes and she's like, whatever, and she just walks away.
It's Spike.
It's Spike. Spike is just a weirdo. But I love it. I love it so much.
And I love her calling him William.
Right.
Like, it's very much the, you know, the mom doing the 3-name call. Like,
yes.
I mean, you're one of the 3-name people, so you know that it's not as effective for you. But
right.
the 3-name
when I
call,
was a kid, though, when my mom said Lani, Diane, Rich, like I knew I was in trouble. When I was a kid, I was just Lani, right? You know, so like I picked up Lani, Diane, Rich as a professional name because Lani Rich sounds so empty. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I just couldn't. But yeah, like when my mom used all 3 names, I knew shit was going down. You know,
busted.
and William.
Busted.
And she only uses William. I think she only calls him William like twice in the entire run. One is here and one is in season 6, I believe, when she breaks up with him. And As You Were, I think it is. Because
God, it's so good.
Because she's having sympathy for him. So this is the mom thing. You know, and then the other one is trying to connect with his human side. And it's just like the use of William has so much power. And I love it. I love it here.
So good.
It's so good. It's so good. The other thing I absolutely love in this episode is the magic box. I love all things magic box. First of all, I love that it's called magic box, which is also a euphemism for a vagina, I believe. Then there's Anya.
If it's not, it is now.
It is now. It should be. It should be. I think at one point I started calling it that, and I don't know if it was because of Buffy and I started calling it that, or if somebody else called it that or whatever, but anyway, it's a magic box. I love the magic box. I love Giles I love the silent joke in his Sorcerer's Apprentice outfit in the beginning.
Hat.
I love that.
God, his
I
little
love
cloak.
When Willow comes in and says, "Where's your cloak and hat?" I love Anya's competence and her new role as working for Giles, which I think is wonderful. I love Xander's confidence as the guy that people confide in and go to for comfort. Even Giles turns to Xander for comfort, and I freaking love it. And Xander's just like, stay British, you'll be okay. Hate to see the 1,000-yard stare in a man in retail. I could live without Willow and Anya's tension, which is about Xander. We're going to get that textually in Triangle. Women fighting over a man is not my favorite thing. That's a bummer. It's a trope that I'm very tired of. So I'm not a big fan of that. But I love the new set. I love this new, library, this Slayer Central, space. It's just everything about the magic box I adore. I think it's just wonderful. The only thing I missed was Tara. There's no Tara in this episode.
Yeah. Yes, and her absence was felt.
It is
but of
felt.
Course, Tara would figure out in 30 seconds what all was going on. So
This is true. This is true.
She's a little OP. She's a touch OP for the
OP.
magical realm.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I love it. I love the contrast, right?
Yeah.
The retail chaos with everything
Yeah.
that's kind of, the like quiet home life. And then later the post-work day stupor that they're all in while Buffy is
I love
fighting something that she's never.
I love that when Giles like, Anya, do you want a job? Can we talk about it tomorrow? And I'm just like, yes, I love that. I love that whole thing. I think that's so wonderful.
And that is set up from Anya's first appearance in this episode. Her, your overpriced, your conjuring powder's
I can hook you up with the troll that shreds it. I love that. Troll that shreds it.
Yep.
Oh, it's so
That
great.
is, I love it. I love it when the writing is just so on.
I know.
That is so good. I could hook you up with the troll
I'll
that
hook
sheds
you up with
it.
the troll that sheds it. I freaking love that.
Okay, Anya.
Do we have to talk about Riley? I guess we should.
We can. I mean, he's barely in the episode.
Barely there.
He does okay for himself.
Just to
he does
whine
all right.
about how he's not strong enough, and then when Buffy brings him in to help with the it's what is it?
Yeah,
it's magic incense and spooky
magic
sand.
incense and spooky sand. But at the same time, he does say like, how about we agree to take care of each other?
I like that. I like that. I do like that.
And I also think have a nice trip is really cute.
It is cute.
That's a cute exit. But
I just don't like Riley. I think that there's nothing he can do that's going to please me at this point. I'm always going to be annoyed by Riley. And you know what? I take that as my thing.
That's fine.
And not necessarily fair or right. But yeah, so
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all fine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Noelle, what are you wearing?
All right, so we get the first appearance of Glory in all her glory. In her, she's giving me like Cameron Diaz in The Mask.
Yeah,
like she's so
I see that
sex potty in this really fascinating way, especially considering that she even calls out the clothes as something she hates about the meat suit.
Right.
And I'm like, wow. Okay. The implied the implied complexity in, okay, you hate having a body and I get it.
Yeah.
And you hate having to dress it and I get it. But this is what you choose.
Right.
I'm just fascinated. There are no words. And then of course her stiletto, her spike heel sandal is the thing that keeps her from fully pursuing Buffy out the window in this kind of fairy tale-esque, you know, it's like your ruby slippers just borked on you there. It's a Cinderella not quite moment. I don't know. I really enjoy Glory's appearance.
Yeah, it's good. It's that bright red. Like
the
that
combination. Yeah. And the combination of how she's dressed with her complex affect.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to use the word crazy because that's a problematic word for a number of reasons, but
clearly agitated.
I am tempted to use it about Glory, not in a this is so tricky.
Well, because we don't have language that doesn't have the stigma on it. We don't have language that can express that kind of affect.
And because she is specifically, she is a crazy woman as a trope of television and cinema. It is this dismissive kind of feminized way of dismissing someone's emotions and
hysteria.
Right? Yes.
She's in hysterics, right? To a certain degree. That's usually meant to describe an emotional space instead of but she's
hysterical.
She's unstable. She's in a reality flipping space, right? Like I think that reality warps at a certain point, and then she needs to steal mental energy from somebody to hold it together. So
she's also manic though, because when she's having a great time, she's having the best time in the world, despite everything that she tells us about hating this whole existence.
Oh, she was having fun when she was fighting with Buffy. She loved the meat suit then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a complex cocktail of tropes
Mhm.
and problematic, but filled out with this like mystical mean mommy archetype that just works for me, and the outfit sells it.
Oh, the
Like
outfit's fantastic.
it's so good. It's so good. There's also some just great, like, they make Buffy look just lovely throughout this episode. I think
Yeah.
she's hit some sort of a fashion stride in season
Yeah.
5.
No, she looked good.
Not that I know anything about fashion, except that coat that she's wearing when she's fighting the vamp at the beginning.
Yeah.
Is that like bunny fur?
I don't know. I imagine
it
whatever it
looks
is, it's
suspiciously
faux.
furry.
I hope that it's
it looked like bunny fur, and I was a little bit like, okay,
bunnies. It must be
that's an
bunnies.
option.
All right, so
Sure.
so am I to take this to mean that you are not wearing the Sorcerer's Apprentice outfit?
No, I'd planned on it. I was going to do a big reveal and then
And just let it go. All right.
Oh God! And we just hold
It
the
is
amount of silence
my
that they let
favorite
exist
joke.
in that moment.
It is one of my favorite jokes in all of Buffy. Just the way she stands there and stares at him. It is so adorable.
And he's so prim in his little coat.
I
And then we
know.
cut and we shot reverse shot for a good, I don't know.
It's a
count
long
of 20.
time.
It's a long time.
Long time. Yeah, but it is one of my favorite jokes ever.
Oh,
All
my
right, so you got
word.
some girl power for me?
Oh, not with a girl pal bit.
I do. And it's kind of an unconventional girl power. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. But Buffy realizing she can't win the fight with Glory and grabbing the monk and getting the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Like, and using her body as a crash pad for that fall.
Yeah,
for
to break
him.
his fall.
I mean,
yeah.
That is genuinely heroic.
Yeah.
But it's also not what we're used to seeing. I mean, obviously, this is our big bad. She's not going to defeat the big bad
in the first
here,
right?
But we don't totally know that yet.
Yeah.
And to see Buffy have that moment of, oh shit, I gotta get the hell out of here.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, take the monk and run is
take the monk and run.
Take the monk and run.
Oh my God.
That's the saying, right?
If we were, the only thing is, if we name our episodes based on the episode of Buffy that we do, but if we were doing names for episodes, it would be Take the Monk and Run. No, I love that. I think it's great. And I think that absolutely is a girl power. Knowing when you're outmatched is also a powerful thing, you know, so I like that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part?
Out for a walk.
Bitch.
They're so okay.
It's
all right.
so
Maybe
good.
I'm reading in nuance that's not there, but he does it in 4, realizes he's got one more word, and then picks a choice word. It's so delightful.
I love it. It's so
delightful.
Great. Yeah, it is. It's really wonderful.
That whole thing, but basically the whole scene with Spike, and you have stupid hair.
And you have stupid hair.
That scene for me is comic relief.
Yeah.
In the sense that it is both comic and such a huge source of relief after all the suspense horror of trance Buffy and Dawn and warped reality before we find out the nature of warped reality. Oh God, it's so good.
I know.
It's this huge, like, it is a glass of ice cold water on a hot day.
When
it
desperately
is just
needed.
the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes.
It is. It's
Yes,
so good.
Just the best.
I love that. I mean, for me, as much as I love Spike, and you know how much I love Spike.
I do know how much you love Spike.
When Buffy goes to Dawn after everything at the end, knowing what Dawn is, you know, and is just loving to her, you know, just cares for her. When she touches her hair, she says she's sorry. That moment is always so touching for me, and I think it's a wonderful way of illustrating what the stakes are, because all we've seen so far in this season is how annoyed Buffy is with Dawn, you know? But to have this moment where she just loves her sister, you know? And knowing that her sister is at stake, that her sister is in danger.
Yep.
I absolutely love that, and it's one of my favorite things. And also Giles' 1,000-yard stare at the magic box and hiring Anya. I had a lot of things that I really loved in this episode.
There are a lot of things to really love in this episode.
There are. I know, right? All right, if you enjoyed this conversation, would like to join in, come find us on social media. I am at Lani Diane Rich on Twitter, and Noelle is at Noelle Aloud on Instagram, and the hashtag is still pretty.
This episode of Still Pretty was brought to you by the Chipperish media producers who support us on Patreon at the power producer level. These people are the reason why Still Pretty is coming to you free and ad-free right now, so thank you to all of our April producers. Sarah, Shelley, Kristen, Kevin, Alice, Erica, Abigail, West, and Jonathan. And this week's special message for our power producers: you can't just go around hitting people. What, were you born in a barn?
To find out how you too can support Chipperish Media, visit patreon.com/chipperish. Other ways to show your support: write a great review on Apple Podcasts, tell your friends about the show, or crap a better existence than this.
We will be back next time with Family, the 6th episode of Season 5. Until then, Newsflash, hairdo, it's not always about you.